I only slipped once using one hand, trying to do a video for you guys, holding the phone right here with this hand and using this hand to use the old trusty drill around the valves right here. I think we're going to be in pretty good shape here. These are E7 heads that I'm working on, and rather than make you look at me, I'll show you the heads here. What we're doing, we're cutting this back because these heads are going on an engine that is getting a supercharger. So I'm relieving this area here a little bit more, so it'll be a little bit less quench area. And before, the combination was going to be these heads ported on a stock engine and a little bit of nitrous, but now it's a whole different scenario. So I've redid the combustion chamber, something you guys probably can't tell here on video, but I've angled this back, the side of the combustion chambers, into this area right here where it's all consistent and it has a nice sweep to it, and took all the sharp edges off. E7s aren't too bad for sharp edges, but any place is prone for detonation where you have a spot that sticks up, especially if you can get your finger in it and catch your fingernail on it. These aren't too bad, but any place that sticks up on any head, you always want to try to knock that area down when it comes to detonation problems. So what we're going to do here is this. I'm hoping in the future here to show you guys these heads on the vehicle, but you never know from day to day what the future holds. So hopefully in the future we'll see these heads on the vehicle. But if we don't, then I will tell you this. This stuff that I do here has always worked well for me. Now, do I recommend telling you guys to do it to your heads and run right out there and do this mod? No, I don't. And of course, some guys are going to see where I've gone around the valve right here, the seat area, and everybody leaves this closed off, and they say that's due to your loose flow if you open this up. Well, I'm more concerned about getting the head where we can run the timing where we want it, making this efficient. If the head's not efficient and you can't run the timing where you want, then you lose power. So all the flow in the world doesn't help if you can't run the timing where it needs to be run when you're trying to make the most out of a engine. So you have to pick and choose your battles sometimes. And to me, this is more important than the flow. And another thing is this. You'll lose compression whenever you modify a combustion chamber and open it up and angle it. So that's always something that you have to remember. Now, some guys have said to me in the past when I do a video like this, there goes your compression. Well, when you're running a boosted application, you can always make that back up with a little turn of the knob on a turbo or a blower. And if you add a little bit more nitrous, this nitrous engine, if that's that crucial to you. Now, on a naturally aspirated engine, this mod still works. Except for in the case, if you want to worry about the compression, you run a thinner head gasket. I think stock is like 40 thousandths, and if you put like a aftermarket gasket on there, head gasket, and just knock the head gasket size down to like 30 thousandths or 27, somewhere in there, whatever you would decide you want it to be, that would bring the compression back up. Now, these are all things I try to cover in my videos because they're comments that have been made in the past. The best thing to do with this head right here is to have it milled, which I recommend my friend has done. It's going to be boosted, and I haven't checked this head to see how level it is. I'm sure it's probably okay, but a machine shop taking this head and putting a nice clean fresh surface back on it would be the best thing. You never know, somebody had this engine before with these heads on and ran it hot. But regardless, think about this, how many heat cycles have been run through this head in the last, well, 1987 at least, E7, and they had these heads on motors up into the 90s. So regardless, you're talking a lot of years of being driven, because most of these heads right here were on cars that were not raced. They were everyday drivers. Most guys, if they wanted to go fast, they took the E7s off and dumped them in the trash in most cases at the junkyard. People gave up on these things. Even guys that had them ported, they didn't see big gains on it, and that's why you have a big aftermarket following with aluminum heads. Not too many people running this cast iron stuff anymore. But I think it's cool when you have a head like this here, factory looking engine, factory looking head, nobody's going to see the work done to it, and you have a car that runs like in the 9s or 10s in the quarter, and they just stand back and look at it, and you have like a little dual plane intake on it and steel heads and little 650 carburetor, and the guys are like, how's that thing that quick? Because these heads right here, the way they sit, not the way they sit because you need valves in them, but as soon as they're done with these heads will actually be good enough to go in the 10s. That's not a speculation. That's a proven thing that we've done many times. I actually have more done to these heads than are done to the heads that are on the green car, the green gangster that we have. That goes 10s on motor with stock short block and everything. And I think these heads here, they should outrun the other heads that are on the green car. These have a little bit more tricks of the trade done to them, and we'll leave it at that. So anyway, I thought I'd show you guys this. I've had a couple guys from YouTube, I'm personal friends with them, and they call me up, and they send me text messages, and they always ask me about the E7s. And I told my friend that I would show this on YouTube. So here you go, Stuart. I hope you can see what's going on here. Some stuff I'll talk about, some things I won't, because it's just things that I do to a head, and what works for me might not work for you if you were to try to imitate what I do here. So I'd rather just show you what I did and not recommend anything that I did to somebody, because I pushed the envelope a little bit with this stuff. Head gets thin in some spots, and I had one guy on YouTube. He wasn't on YouTube, on my channel rather, and he called me and said I ruined my head. I went through on a pair of GT40 heads. Actually, he left me a message on my channel. Been a long time, but I don't want to see anybody have a problem trying to do the extreme stuff. And I don't know if it shows up on the video here, but these are opened up pretty good. Now, one of the things that you want to always take into consideration, you'll have guys tell you opening the intake ports up don't help for flow. That could be true, but what it does help is you have a straight run. And that's what I always go for. I try to make the runners as straight as possible. I knock it all back, and what I do, I take metal in the corners and blend it all in tight where there's not any low spots. Because if you get like a trench area from using a bit, a carbide bit or a sanding roll, believe it or not, that air goes dead and it won't move. So I could show you that sometime, maybe by showing you when I do a port. When I get all the metal laying in the port and the sanding roll dust, and you blow through it, and if you have a little low spot, you will see that air take the dust right out, where it's nice and consistent and tight to the wall and the roof. Where if you have a trench area or a bad spot in the runner, that dust will just sit there. I've tried to explain this a few times to a few people, and I think it's hard to get a visual on that, but that's something you could notice yourself. If you do a pair of heads and you blow it out, you could actually see the dust just lay there. When that dust just stays there, that will show you that air is not moving. And if you ever have a spot in a runner, like say you're doing this side of the runner and you keep trying to get the air to move, and you're like, why isn't the air moving well here? And use a technique where you use Dicam or chalk powder or anything you may use to test that with. A lot of times you have to jump to the other side of the port, and then when you do this side of the port, the air will pick up on that side. I don't hear anybody talk about that at all on YouTube. Just something I've noticed with my little backyard experience. But maybe you'll hear one of the bigwig guys talk about that, being as I mentioned it. That's how it usually goes when I do a video. Little old me, I happen to say something or show something, and then there's the guys that have all the technology in the world. They usually do a video covering the same thing. It's a little coincidental, maybe? I don't know. Anyway, I thought I'd show you guys that. I hope it helps someone out. Whenever I try to do a video, even if you don't do exactly what I do, it might help you do your head better than what it might have been before. I might give you an idea, or it might just be something you'll be like, you know, I like that idea, and I'm willing to take that chance, cut the guide back more or whatever. If you have a street car and you're just trying to have a little fun with it, you don't need to blow these heads all out. You just need to do the bowl area in certain spots in the head. Rather than ported head, if you had to pick and choose your battles here, these areas in here, this bowl area is more important than making this big. Now, your taper rate matters a lot too. You'll always, if you open this way up and don't do any work back in here, in this area, you might as well forget about opening this up, because that taper rate, if you leave that real small back here or don't straighten this into the bowl area, you're wasting your time just by trying to do something fancy and tell somebody, hey, I matched that to a 1262. If you don't do all this work back here, you're just wasting your time. You will not probably see any improvement at all. Like if you were just to say, I'm going to port my head. Some guys think they're porting a head just by opening it up here and let all this stuff go. A nice valve job is always important, so that's another thing. But the exhaust on an E7 is crucial. I hear a lot of people say the exhaust doesn't matter, it's going to go out one way or another, but without a good exhaust port, the intake charge cannot be efficient without a good exhaust port. And a lot of guys that talk about the exhaust on some of these high performance shows and stuff, you got to remember one thing. They usually have an exhaust port this big. They're usually talking about a race head or a high flowing head that has a good exhaust already. When you have something this small and has a small valve and it has a small port and then it's blocked off by a thermactor bump that these have, that I've taken out, then that's more crucial than anything. So I hope this helps you guys out. This is just my opinion about how I look at these heads here and how I see it. And I always want to just try to pass on information to you guys that I think works. Now, if I just did this work and didn't ever see anything come out of it, I wouldn't have a whole lot to say about it. I will say this. There's a lot of guys on YouTube. They'll show their head. I've seen this many times, E7s, and they'll say, these are the best E7s on the planet. I'd like to see somebody outrun these E7s. These heads are going to make 500 horsepower. You never see them put the head on an engine. You never see it run on a vehicle. So they have nothing to back it except a nice looking head that they have many hours in. Some of the heads look good. But they all, every one of these channels I've seen that did E7s, all but maybe one or two guys, they all said that their E7s are better than everybody else's. And they've never put them on anything. And even if they go on a flow bench and do a good number, it doesn't prove anything, because that head could flow well, but it might not be efficient. And especially if they have it flowing real good numbers, because they've cut the floor down on the intake side and cut the floor back, short turn, you'll pick up flow. But that head will be a dog on a vehicle. So I thought I'd throw that in there, because I see that a lot. There for a while, a year or so ago, everybody had E7s on there, and I had to really bite my tongue. I had to just sit back and say, keep your opinion to yourself, Terry. So anybody that doesn't really know about our E7s, most of you guys do, you can always look up our car, the Green Gangster, if you want to see how a pair of E7s run. My son's on there with the Green Gangster, that's what he calls the car, and I call it God's gift myself. That's what that car was. But anyway, everything he's on there racing on YouTube. My son doesn't like to put everything out there, but most of them cars he's on there racing, and the motorcycles. Some of them cars are grudge cars, so it's not fair to say how fast they go. But I'll tell you this, there's more than a few of them that are 8-second cars. And one of the cars traps over 150 miles an hour, and he's on there doing pretty well with an everyday driving Mustang with a stock bottom end, all but the cam swap, and a dual plane intake. And for the longest time, I had the 650 carburetor, 750. Once we tuned it in, picked up a tiny bit, but it's just a stock engine with a bunch of miles on it, and it still runs 10s on motor. And just because we did a pair of heads similar to these, but I might give you guys a little incentive to want to do a pair of E7s instead of just throwing them in the trash. If you have time, if you want to just have something to do, you're not really out much, because these heads you can still pick up pretty reasonable. A lot of people have them laying around, and they don't give them a second thought. One of our guys that we're kind of buddies with, he always says to me, why don't you do a pair of decent heads up for your car? Well, if our car goes 9 seconds with a stock bottom end 302 with a little bit of nitrous on it, why do I want to spend $2,000 or $3,000 on a pair of aftermarket cylinder heads? It really bothers them that car goes that fast using the factory stuff. That's the only thing I can figure out. And some guys get upset over that when they just raise your hood, or you'll see your hood open and you got a little dual plane and there's nothing much done and the car's that quick. So anyway, I thought I'd run that by you guys. There's a lot of new guys on the channel, and I appreciate you new subs, and I appreciate you guys have been with me for a long time. And I always want to make sure that I put information out there to somebody that don't know what we've done or don't understand about the E7 stuff, can look it up on my son's channel. That's why I always bring up my son Adam and look up the Green Gangster, because the proof is in the pudding, and that kind of shows that some guys just say things, and when you have something to show what you're talking about, it helps you make people understand a little bit better. When somebody just talks about it and you don't see anything but a head laying on a bench, that's how I look at it. I see a lot of it. I see more of that on YouTube than anything. And the dyno test, and even when you see a dyno test on an engine, then you see the engine in a vehicle. The vehicle is usually nowhere near time-wise as it did on that dyno with the horsepower rating. I've seen that quite a bit. I know a couple guys on YouTube, their vehicles run very well. They've had it on dyno, and things really stout, and then they take the car down, that's good. I see more cars that don't run after saying they have big horsepower numbers on the dyno than it should. One guy had like 700 horsepower and the vehicle barely runs into the 10s, and I figured it out mathematically. It's 100 horsepower less than what that dyno said on the channel. So anyway, I thought I'd throw that little bit of information in there. I'm going to clean up out here. Been here for a while. It's been beautiful out today, so I did this work out here. Been over my little table here out in the yard, and got a little bit done today, guys. So that's always a good thing. So with that, I want to say thanks for watching, and I appreciate you guys taking time out of your day. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, if you like this kind of stuff, click the old button. And if you have a buddy that's interested in this stuff, pass it on. Any comments are welcome on my channel. And I always appreciate when you guys take the time to just even say hi. So thank you for taking time out of your day, fellas, when you do leave a comment or just watch my video. I appreciate it. So with that, I'm going to say God bless you and have a good day.